why should people earning similar amounts of income be expected to make different contributions out of that income to the cost of providing schools, hospitals, police, environmental protection, defence, and all the other things that governments provide, because they earn it in different ways? Or to be more specific, if you earn $100,000 in wages and salaries or interest, why should you pay more tax on that income than someone who earns it in capital gains, rent, through a partnership and trust, or for that matter, an inheritance? And there can be reasons why there should be a difference. And for example, we can't completely ignore the way different countries tax different types of incomes, because we are a capital importing nation. We, in all but 6 of the last 66 years, haven't saved enough to fund all the investment we want to undertake. We need to import capital from abroad. So we can't completely ignore what other countries are doing, although we don't have to slavishly follow what they do. You can use the tax system to encourage certain kinds of behaviour and discourage others, in the same way that we use indirect taxes, for example, to discourage smoking and excessive alcohol consumption. You might want to use the tax system to encourage saving or particular types of investment. So there can be some legitimate reasons for doing that, but it's a fair question to say, should the differences be as big as they have been? And especially given, as we were saying earlier, the way in which the tax treatment of investment in housing has worked so much to the detriment of younger Australians, I think what the government is doing in that space is absolutely right. And let's go a little bit further into that. While negative gearing has been around for a long time, at least since the 1930s, the change to the capital gains tax regime in 1999 turbocharged it, because it turned negative gearing from a strategy that traditionally had allowed people to defer tax to a strategy that allowed them both to defer tax and permanently reduce it by converting what would otherwise be wage and salary income taxable at your full marginal rate in the year in which you earn it into capital gains taxable in a year of your choosing at half the marginal rate you would otherwise pay. And not surprisingly, after the change to the CGT regime in 1999, there was a significant increase, one, in the proportion of the population who were property investors, two, in the proportion of those property investors who were negatively geared, and three, in the proportion of housing finance that was going to investors as opposed to owner-occupiers. And in particular, 80% or more of the money that is lent to property investors goes to the purchase of established housing. That is housing we've already got. Now, that does nothing to increase the supply of housing at all, because we've already got it. What it does, first of all, is push up the price of housing. And second, by definition, when a property investor outbids a would-be homeowner for an established property, although they pat themselves on the back and say, aren't I a fine fellow because I'm increasing the supply of rental housing and therefore I should get a tax break, they're actually increasing the demand for rental housing by exactly the same amount, because the would-be home buyer who's been trying to buy a place and has been outbid by an investor who gets his tax bills interest bills subsidised through the taxes, then has to rent. So there is no good served by having the tax system encourage people to speculate with borrowed money on the price of housing we've already got going up over time. There is a public interest in encouraging people to invest or finance the construction of new housing, because that does increase the supply of housing, as long as local governments let you build the new housing and don't put obstacles in your way. So, I think those changes are desirable. And the thing that's frustrating is that those changes will result in lower house prices, but the government is too scared to say it. Yeah. And so the messaging comes across as, what are they really trying to say?